What's up, y'all? So, as you can see, I'm at work. Shit's going down. I'm just gonna try to bring you some quick little notes on this situation going down with Quincy Jones because this is huge. He's spilling all the tea on Michael Jackson. He's talking about the Beatles. He's talking about U2. He's talking about Trump. He's talking about Bill Cosby. He's talking about Oprah. He's talking about everybody we know, love, hate. And I'm just going to give you some of the recounts. First things first, let me just get into what I just read, because I haven't finished this interview, but I've gotten pretty deep into it. He pretty much suggests that Marlon Brando, who I know the name, but I don't really know what he did. Like, don't come for me in the comments for that, but I don't know. He's irrelevant to my lifestyle. Nonetheless, he suggests that Marlon Brando has had sex with James Baldwin, Richard Pryor, and Marvin Gaye. That, we'll just start there, and then we'll back up from there. Okay, so let's start at the beginning of this interview where he just comes out the gate talking about Michael Jackson and pretty much says something to the effect, and I will link this interview in the description box below so that you can read this whole thing. I'm not going to read the whole interview for you, but I think that this is worth a read, and I'm just going to recount these things for you, okay? So, I'll read these blurbs. You work with Michael Jackson more than anyone he wasn't related to. What's something people don't understand about him? Quincy says, I hate to get into this publicly, but Michael stole a lot of stuff. He stole a lot of songs. The notes don't lie, man. He was as Machiavellian as they come, in reference to State of Independence and Billie Jean. State of Independence is a Donna Summer song, which I can't say that I know, but, you know. If Quincy says it, I'm believing it. This is I believe he's 81 years old. An 81-year-old man that has nothing to lose. This is a certified music genius and legend, so, you know, I'm all for it. He also says, you know, that he used to, this is a quote from him, I used to kill him about the plastic surgery, man. He'd always justify it and say it was because of some disease he had. Bullshit in regards to Michael Jackson. And, I mean, this is finally somebody going on record and saying what everybody's always thought, felt, and, you know, what was kind of the elephant in the room. It's interesting that he brings up in this next piece Big Pharma, because we all know that Big Pharma had a major role in Michael's death, as it does with a lot of Americans, and the addiction to opioids. And, you know, I'll just read this one blurb. It says, Pharma making OxyContin and all that shit is a serious thing. I was around the White House for 8 years with the Clintons, and I'd learn about how much influence Big Pharma has. It's no joke. What's your sign, man? So his old peopleisms creep through and stuff, and he like jumps around in this interview, and it's really funny. But the fact that he mentions Big Pharma and the Clintons, it's very interesting, and it goes and it segues into this. You just mentioned the Clintons, who are friends of yours. Why is there still such visceral dislike for them? What are other people not seeing in Hillary, for example, that you see? It's just because there's a side of her. When you keep secrets, they backfire, Quincy says. Like what secrets? Vulture says. This is something else I shouldn't be talking about. That's what Quincy said. So Quincy, I don't know. If Quincy Jones ends up dead in the next, like, week or month or this year, I don't think it's because of health. I definitely think it's because of this interview, and I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but he goes on to say he knows who killed Kennedy. It says, because the question is, what's something you wish you didn't know? Who killed Kennedy? He responds. And then they ask, who did it? He says Chicago mobster Sam Giancana. I don't know. I don't know these names. They don't mean anything to me. But I know that this means a lot to people who have always theorized and thought these things. Vulture responds with, I've heard this theory before, that the mob helped him win Illinois for Kennedy in 1960. He then responds, we shouldn't talk about this publicly, and goes on to ask the interviewer where he's from, in Toronto. And he goes on to mention, you know, that back in the day, like Woodstock and all the stuff that was happening that we now consider legendary was not legendary. Like, they were just doing what they had to do to get where they had to go, and they were getting paid, you know, $1,000 as a band in comparison to like bands that get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars now. So he goes on to talk about, you know, just rock music, and I'll give you a direct quote because this is still my favorite quote from the whole entire interview. They ask him, what do you think when you first heard rock music? He says, rock ain't nothing but a white version of rhythm and blues, motherfucker. You know, I met Paul McCartney when he was 21. So, you know, there you have it, Quincy Jones. He's giving you the real tea about how he and, you know, the world should feel about rock music. It's hilarious when I see, you know, like, white people try to say that rock music is like theirs. No, try again. They ask, what were your first impressions of the Beatles? I don't know, I have this pin situation going on my hand. What were your first impressions of the Beatles? He thought that they were the worst musicians in the world. I still think that to this day. Like, you cannot catch me listening to a Beatles song. I think it's all terrible. And I now have proof to back it up. Quincy Jones says this about Paul. Paul was the worst bass player I have ever heard, and Ringo, don't even talk about it. I remember once we were in the studio with George Martin and Ringo, and it had taken 3 hours for a 4-bar thing he was trying to fix on the song. He couldn't get it. We said, mate, why don't you get some lager and lime, some shepherd's pie, and take an hour and a half and relax a little bit. So he did, and we called Ronnie Verrell, a jazz drummer. Ronnie came in 15 minutes, tore it up. Ringo came back and says, George, can you play it back for me one more time? So George did, and Ringo says, that didn't sound so bad. And I said, yeah, motherfucker, because it ain't you. So this is Quincy Jones just laying it out on him. He's not attacking, but giving you the tea and the truth about the Beatles and how terrible they really are, because we really all know that. And then he also says that the Microsoft's Paul Allen is amazing, is an amazing musician. And, you know, I'm here in Seattle, so I'll have to shout out Paul Allen. Not really, because you ain't giving me no money. But Quincy Jones goes on to say that he wishes that he could fix racism with the snap of a finger, and that he feels like, you know, things haven't gotten better in his lifetime, and that he sees that rich people don't give a fuck about poor people, and it will probably always be that way. And just because they don't have any experience with being poor, so they don't know what it's like. But, you know, he identifies with both sides, and that's why he works to do the work that he does, and he's fought so hard for people of color. And he goes on to mention that, I forgot what year it was, let me try to find it. He also dated Ivanka Trump at one point in time, which is hilarious. He goes on to talk about Trump and says, you know, that he's pretty egotistical and that he's limited mentally, which we have all learned and witnessed through this presidency. He doesn't suggest Oprah as a president. He thinks that U2 is making terrible music, which we all know as proof. Check your iPhone. If you still have that album on your iPhone, you're a simp, you're lame, you need to delete that shit because you know it was horrible. And if songs randomly come on, you know you turned them. He pretty much says that everything that he's done has been legendary, innovative, and historical. And can we argue with him? No, because he's worked with the greatest music people did music. That was a terrible sentence of mine. But he says that he does like Bruno Mars, Chance the Rapper, Kendrick Lamar. He thinks Kendrick is in a good space. He also says something that I'm not here for, which is that he's a fan of the Ed Sheeran record. But whatever, do your thing, Quincy. He said he also likes Sam Smith, who's openly gay, and he likes that about Sam Smith. So obviously he doesn't like Sam Smith music. He just likes the fact that he's openly gay. But that's what I took from that. He doesn't think that there's a music business anymore. He thinks that everybody should have listened to Sean Fanning of Napster 20 years ago. And I would have to agree with him. He says that music, film composers, they're lazy. I agree. He says that rappers are lazy. He says that just modern music is lazy. And I agree. As somebody who made music, I don't make music anymore because I felt like everything that he said, you know, everybody's really lazy and nobody really cares to learn music theory and understanding that it's an exploitation of the psyche and emotion. Music, that's why that, you know, you get scared in a scary movie. It's not the images, it's the soundtrack that's really helping convey that theater of the mind that's going on. So I don't know, I think that he's made a lot of really good points. He said that as a young man he carried around a gun. I guess to feel safe. He says a lot of great things in this interview. Like I said, I haven't made it all the way through this whole entire interview, but it was edited and condensed from 2 conversations. I'll leave the information in the description box below, but I just wanted to come and recount this and kind of give us somewhat of a reaction to what Quincy Jones is saying. This is like, you know, a viral story and it's trending. So thank you for watching this video. If you made it thus far, go ahead and subscribe, because, you know, I'd like to do this from time to time and give you my thoughts. And I've been doing this more frequently. I have a Justin Timberlake video that's coming really soon. It'll be done in true YouTube form and fashion, where it's a nice production, and, you know, I'll have my evidence and my receipts, where I pretty much just tell you why Justin Timberlake has always sucked and why he always will suck. So thank you for making it this far. If you have, give this video a like. It really helps me. Comment below what you think was the craziest thing that Quincy Jones had to say that he revealed. I think the Marlon Brando thing, and that was really huge, because you just pretty much said that Richard Pryor is bisexual, and that I don't know. That's crazy. But thank you guys. Holla at you later.